What is up, fitness family? Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. I clearly wanted to get on here and give my analysis and breakdown a little bit of 25.2. I keep wanting to confuse it with 22.3 because, of course, they're the same workout. But nonetheless, I'm going to jump right into it. I think that if you went back and you watched the open announcement, which I think was very important to do, there would be some things that would really stick out to you. Um, I may hop on and post a little bit about some of what we saw from the women. But I think there's a lot of data out there in regards to what we saw score wise for 22.3. And I think it would be silly of you not to go back and reference that. So you need to be using your own data from the way that you performed this workout in 2022. And then you also need to be going and watching other old videos and then even looking into other scores as data points. Now, what you can assume overall is that the majority of the elite level competitors that participated in 2022, they're going to take steps forward and they're going to improve their time. Typically, we always improve repeat workouts due to stimulus alone, then mindset and approach. But a lot of the community, especially at the elite level, have gotten fitter. Now, will that be 10 out of 10 all the time, 100%? Absolutely not. But from a general perspective, you don't want to be playing to the standards of a 2022 elite athlete. You want to be thinking about what that looks like now, and base your own personal expectations around that. All those things considered, 22.3, also 25.2 is all based on self-awareness. I mentioned this in the broadcast when it comes to, um, you know, skills and drills, essentially. Do you have the skills? Are you going to be able to navigate the pull-ups, the chest to bar, and the bar muscle ups? And if you do have those skills, what is the best approach for you to actually get through them? Because it's not going to be about anyone else's speed. It's going to be about your speed. It's not going to be about anyone else's tempo. It's going to be about your tempo. What you have to remember is nothing that you accomplish within the first two blocks of this workout, from the pull-ups and the thrusters to the chest to bars and the thrusters, matter at all once you enter the third block, unless you're proficient at the third block, which means if 135.85 is an efficient weight for you to go 15 unbroken or with a very short rest into two sets, and if you're proficient at bar muscle ups in such a way to get them in 3 to 4 broken up sets, then you might be able to push the tempo. But if you don't even know if you have bar muscle ups, going fast on the first two blocks gets you absolutely nothing. If you know that you're going to be on the struggle bus for the thrusters and they feel heavy to you, then rushing through the first two bars gives you absolutely nothing. So remind yourself about the approach here and about the intensity that you want to attack it. Go back and watch Sydney and Emily do it. You'll start to notice a few things. One is that one of the biggest separators was that Emily was willing to come out and be risky in her approach. And then she was still able to hang on late, I believe, breaking up the bar muscle ups once and then the thrusters once, and that being in the final round of 15. So if she went back and she got an opportunity to sit on this workout for 2 hours before she got a chance to do it, would she change anything? The answer is probably yes. She probably would have started a little bit slower because of the crowd environment. And let me tell you, the crowd there at CrossFit in India was crazy. It was very loud. It was very games-esque with the environment, even past that, because the crowd was just so on top of the athletes and the environment was so closed in. But I say all that, a lot of you will be attacking this in the Friday nights type atmosphere where, again, emotions reign high. There's going to be a lot of things to consider. Your adrenaline's going to be high. You have to be very clear and you have to be almost methodical to start this thing. So when I give you advice the way that I'm going to for the layout of this particular workout, I want you to keep that in mind, that the idea is to be methodical in your approach. Now, when it comes to the official layout of this workout, let me pull this up just so I make sure that I'm not getting anything wrong here. Let's share the screen. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit behind, so this is going to be a little bit clunky because, well, I'm at the airport and I hustled here to get set and ready to rock and roll, of course, for all the things. So you can see this is the workout, okay? And I know most of you clearly know this already without me pointing it out, but you have an idea what to expect. The 21 pull-ups, 42 double unders, 21 thrusters at weight 1, of course, which is 95.65. Weight 2 is going to be that 115.75, and then weight 3, 135.85. But then we get into the second skill, which is 18 chest to bar pull-ups, 36 double unders, and then we go 15 bar muscle ups, 30 double unders, 15 thrusters. So again, cascading. I don't need to talk much about the format and the structure. This is basically like a chipper style workout, but it is rounds for time because Again, we got three movements here, and we're working our way down. Now, the interesting thing is that a lot of people, of course, dive in to see the perception of intensity, and I'm warning you to come out slower than you want to. I believe that I have a previous time on this workout of 6:13, and I did this workout and intentionally broke everything up until my final round just to show my athletes that I could go fast, quote unquote fast, in this workout and pace it. So there's a way, and many of you will have to experience the workout 2 or 3 times, of course, to optimize the workout, just because you don't know how to balance, you don't have high level self-awareness. If you have the self-awareness, you should look at this workout and be like, okay, cool. So here's the thing, 21 pull-ups, can I do them unbroken? Yes, I could do 21 kipping pull-ups, fine. I could do 21 strict pull-ups. But would I do that? I would not personally. I think that's a pointless time to go fast and to also start to accumulate an undue amount of grip fatigue that can save me later when the reps are cycled slower and the bigger sets I will be rewarded for the bigger sets. So I would encourage most people to break up the set of 21 pull-ups, even if you don't have to. Then down into 21 thrusters. Now for me, most of you need to consider keeping the barbell work unbroken if you're strong enough. Meaning that if you look at 21 thrusters at 95-65 and you know you could do 30 unbroken, then probably hanging on to the bar is going to be a fine thing. But do you have to? Absolutely not. You do not have to. Then we continue down, and I'm leaving double unders for a separate conversation here. Then we come on down to 18 chest to bar pull-ups again. Most athletes who can do 21 pull-ups unbroken can consider doing 18 chest to bars unbroken. But should you? I don't think so. You go down and you either go 9-9 or maybe you go like 12-6 perhaps. But again, the idea is that momentary alleviation of coming off the bar with predicted rest, intentional predicted rest, can be a huge separator for you when you don't have to respond to fatigue later, and that's the reason that you have to rest. So notice that I'm trying to help you differentiate the purpose of rest. I don't want you to have rest choose you by means your hands are blown up, your grip is blown up, you can't do another rep, you failed a rep, you did this, you did that right, you're crazy out of breath. I want you to choose rest before all those things are true, and I want you to predict when those things will happen by dictating how long you allow that rest to be or how frequent perhaps you visit it. And I think this is a huge thing when it comes to separating cusp athletes, meaning that athletes are not even, maybe they're just the RX athlete and they want to be like an RX plus, but not quite elite. All these things in regards to your reflection of the open, sorry for the noise if it's loud behind me, um, all these things in a reflection of the open score are going to be dictated not mostly by your fitness, but mostly by the choices you make in these workouts. So unfortunately, so many people are going to take this test for a run and they're going to get a depiction of their fitness. They're going to be disappointed. They're going to be let down only because they're too prideful to make good choices, right? You come out and you have visions of grandeur and you're like, well, I'm so much fitter and I could do so much more. I'm so much stronger. I'm going to show everybody. That usually doesn't turn out well. If you don't have a methodical approach and an intentional understanding of where you will speed up, where you will slow down, where you will rest, and where you will not rest, which is also a big thing I'll talk about in just a moment, then you're going to falter somewhere towards the middle of this workout and then into this final round, which is going to be the big separator. So we get into the chest to bar pull-ups. I'm encouraging most people to break it up. The round of thrusters can still be broken. It's 18, but remember, it's a significant jump in load, right? We're looking at a 20-pound increase in weight, and for the men, only a 10 pounds for the women. So this is again where, to me, I think the weights are a little off here. To be honest with you, from a cyclical rate, I think that 135 is more equivalent to about a 105-pound load for the women at this point in our sport with the athletes that we consider to be competitive, which of course, this workout is for everybody, of course, but with that consideration, this is my only feedback here is that a 135-pound barbell for me and other elite males, not consider myself in that group, but my strength is still up there, feels very different than an 85-pound barbell for the women. In fact, 135-95 is even not equivalent when it comes to what women are typically able to cycle. Now, the closer that we get to 1RMs and sub-maximal loads like 3 reps and below, 5 reps and below, I strongly make that consideration of 70%. I think that's validated even in the data that we see. That's besides the point. My point here with this middle block is that you need to make considerations so that you have an understanding that it's a fairly big jump for men, it's a fine jump for women, and you're only doing 3 less reps. So my take, break it. If you're questioning it at all, break it up. And here's why. It's because the goal is to get through these fast and effectively, but feeling good as you enter into 15 bar muscle ups. Remember, your body's going to be taxed in many ways. One, due to the adrenaline dump. Two, due to the high heart rate. And three, it's your grip is going to be very limited. It's going to be a limiter for many of you. So when you jump up on that bar, 15 bar muscle ups, you need to feel good, not like you're hanging on. If you're just hanging on, that 15 bar muscle ups is going to exponentially be much slower and be much more difficult to get through than if you were to simply overpace the first part and then finish fast here. So my advice is this is where you start to go big. Many athletes will need to go sets of 3 or sets of 4 lower reps. But if you have the opportunity and this is a good movement for you, this is where you want to approach this thing and consider hanging on to try to go unbroken, or intentionally break one time and then get back up there as with as short a break as possible. And then finally, we've got the 15 thrusters, which of course on this barbell, your job is to hang on to that thing as best you can. Now, keep this in mind. If you have the capacity to go unbroken here, of course, do it. You can go unbroken fast, of course, do it. But if cycle rate starts to slow and you feel the question if you need to drop it, consider pausing in the front rack on the way down on your final reps, meaning that if you start to falter, lockout gets a little sketchy, bars coming forward, take the bar in your front rack position, take a breath, then squat and press into the next thruster, then go back into the front rack, squat and press into the thruster, right? Instead of dropping it. Because once we drop a weight like this, it's very inevitable that it starts to take longer than we anticipate to pick it back up. So that's my take. Now, of course, I didn't talk about double unders. Double unders, if they're automatic for you, if they're something that you don't really consider a struggle, then you need to make sure that they're refined and they're paced and they're practiced to be sharp and concise before you ever get going in this workout. My advice overall from a warm-up perspective, which I'll talk about in just a moment, is that you get overly prepared for this workout because you want to hit the ground running hard and running fast. If your heart rate isn't peaked already and then properly recovered, you are going to struggle after you get through that first round of 21 and 21s and get about halfway through that round of 18. For the vast majority of people, because simply most people aren't going to go under 6 minutes and then have the fatigue hit them later, right? If you can go fast enough in this workout and really gas pedal it, you won't feel the most pain until you're actually finished. But for most of you that are mere mortals, you will feel the pain, and it'll be sometime towards that latter 2/3 of the workout. So double unders need to be refined and they need to be accurate. The accuracy really matters, specifically if you're going to go sub 6 minutes. And you can say like, well, Adrian, you could mess these up and it's not that high a volume. The accuracy is everything, because once you mess up your double unders, well, you've got to get going again, of course, but then you enter self-doubt, and then your fatigue feels more fatigued. Your frustration feels more exponentially higher than the frustration that you dealt with before. So my point is, don't cost yourself on double unders. Make sure that they're sharp and you're focused on them. You can't overlook them in this test. If you're going for a fast time, if you're going sub 4:30 or sub 5 minutes, you better bet every rep of this workout counts. So that's even a more point to have urgency towards the approach of double unders. Now, if you struggle with double unders, so this is the other side of the coin, you want to, again, pace this entire workout so that you don't get so much fatigue built up in the pull-ups or the thrusters that then the double unders are even worse. You see, so many people, when we get into the open or a state of competition that aren't used to competing at a high level, in their mind, they think, well, coach, I struggle with this movement, so my other movements better be really fast. That's a trap. If you do the other movements really fast, your weakness movement will struggle even more. I have yet to ever see in my coaching career with CrossFit, see someone say, well, I'm going to double down on this movement because I suck at this other movement. And then the movement that they suck at just gets worse. And then they have a worse time and they have a lower output. So be mindful of that. This takes a lot of, again, self-awareness and humility in your approach, but I think that's what's most important to consider. So I say all of this to say, preparation is clearly important. Like I said, I would suggest most people hop on a bike if you're doing this solo and not necessarily in a class, at least 10 minutes, easy and slow. And then I would consider ramping up your heart rate with maybe some 20 on, 40 off bike style intervals, maybe even 30 and 30, where you literally cycle at a pretty fast and aggressive rate, and then you drop it off easy for the next 30 or 40 seconds. And then you do that for anywhere between 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 sets. After your heart rate gets down, and then you start to tissue prep. And of course, before that, you want to get into opening all the joints, your lats, your triceps, your shoulders for your front rack position. And then of course, your hips, your knees, your ankles for a great front rack and into the thruster position. You want to try to stay as upright as you can. I've got a published warm-up for anyone that wants to follow that, so you guys can go ahead and do that wherever you feel like it's going to be most advantageous. Um, and then I would encourage you to make sure that your hip flexors are warm and that your quads have as much positive stimulation as possible. So, of course, you're going to get that on the bike, but you want to make sure that you're pistoning enough out of the bottom of that squat to feel like your knees and your quads are feeling good. That's really going to come into play, especially in the latter part of this workout. So be mindful of all those things. Um, Make sure that you check out the warm up that we've got. I'll make sure that it's in the show notes below if you're watching this on YouTube or even in the podcast notes if you choose to listen to it audio wise. But I feel like this open show or the plan prep and primer are a little bit out of order and a little bit, hopefully not out of context, but not the same type of sharp delivery that I'm used to, simply because uh, I'm definitely out of sorts with where I'm at and trying to get this information to everybody as most efficiently as possible. So my apologies there, but I still hope it's helpful nonetheless. I think there are a few things to consider that are outliers. The first one is that the repeatability of this test is very high, which means that if you guys are willing to take that 15-minute AMRAP for a repeat, this one's going to be a strong consideration for a repeat effort. You could do this up to 3 times, especially if you're proficient at the gymnastics and that volume isn't going to create a crazy amount of undue soreness. So have your mind wrapped around that. Some of you may want to consider actually giving it a full go at like a reckless pace and then being able to dial back in a more nuanced attack with a little bit more forethought, a little bit more caution to have a more refined time, later in the weekend or even Monday of next week. I would consider for those that need this, if you struggle with staying upright in your thruster and you practice this regularly, consider wearing lifters. I don't often encourage that, but if you're quad dominant and you can get your torso more upright, as I mentioned on the broadcast, and again, if you haven't watched it, please go back and watch it because I try to drop as many valuable jewels there as possible with the time that I have allotted. And then I think CrossFit's going to release some tips that I gave to anyone that was watching as well after the fact. So keep an eye on their IG. But when it comes to breathing for the thruster, you want to consider, especially through the first 2 bars, there needs to be an inhale-exhale exchange even through the bottom of your squat. A lot of times people brace, the bar gets onto their front rack, they take that breath and they hold their breath until they're ready to stand and start to lock it out, and then they exhale at the top. I want to encourage you to find a rhythm where you're inhaling and exhaling constantly through the movement, not just in and out of the bottom of the squat. If you can do this and stay a little bit more on the aerobic side versus anaerobic side early, it will help you brace and be able to accelerate in and out of the bottom of the squat better for the heavier load. I know a lot of you might not be strong enough to do that, and so I understand. But again, if you have this opportunity, warm yourself up appropriately. Have your mind wrapped around, how do I breathe? What was Coach Conway talking about? Feel it with an empty bar. Breathe the whole time, up and down, in and out. It's not just one breath per one rep. You won't be able to sustain that unless you're top level, high level fitness. And even then, at the rate that they can exchange the thrusters and the pull-ups and get back and forth, they won't be able to sustain it either. But if you go back and watch footage of the Frasers and the Mal O'Briens and the people that do thrusters like they were designed to do thrusters, like that's their sole purpose, like, oh, you're designed to do a thruster, watch them. Watch when they catch breaths, watch when they breathe. It's not simply in and out exchange at the bottom. Now, the reason I bring all this up at this point is because I mentioned lifters. If you got lifters, wear them. It keep your torso more upright. The more your hip has to go back in your squat, you find yourself at this angle in the bottom, and then you come up this way at the top. Well, when you're down here, your midline right in this area, we're going to pretend this is your hip. Your midline right in this area has to brace even harder to not get folded by the weight and for your elbows to drop. So it's hard for you to have a clear breath exchange here if you cantilever forward. This is why you got to work on your squat mechanics all the time, because we need you to get as vertical as possible. These athletes with longer torsos, shorter femurs that get to stay tall, the thruster is easier for them all the time. So not only typically do they have a shorter range, because not a lot of long torso athletes have long arms, but there's completely a leverage game being played, and you're losing at it the more that you let your shoulders come forward in your squat. So work on your ankle flexibility. Make sure they're good and warm. Let your knees come over your toes in the bottom of your squat, and then make sure you wear lifters if you need to. If you're a belt person and you feel like that heavy barbell is going to be tough for you, loosely wear a belt through the first 2 rounds and then strap that thing on as you approach the final weight. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Whatever helps you get unbroken sets is what you need to do. So be mindful of that. Make sure you guys have a couple friends with you, because the exchange of the weight and getting that set up, of course, is going to be make or break for most people that are competing at a high level. And have fun with this thing. I think, the whole idea of CrossFit being measurable, observable, and repeatable is for these moments. It's to track our fitness and track our progress. A lot of you are going to nail your old time and kill it. And you're still not going to be happy. And I understand that, because you're comparing yourself to the masses or to other high level competitors. But I warn you about that. Comparison is a thief of joy. And I want to leave you guys with this is, get focused on what you need to do to be proud of your effort. Think about that. Think about you individually. If I'm talking to any of my one-to-one athletes, it's think about what your expectations are and what will make you most proud, because it doesn't need to be a number. It needs to be how you execute. And I can guarantee you, if you formulate a plan and you execute that plan, you will be happy, and your score will also reflect that overall mindset and psyche going into this workout. So have fun with this thing. It's going to be brutal. I'm hoping that I can throw down in it myself. As most of you know, I've been battling a shoulder thing for the last 5.5 weeks, and I did pull-ups 2 days ago for the first time. Actually, it was yesterday. My days are all messed up with this travel. I did strict pull-ups and keeping pull-ups yesterday. So does that mean I'll be able to do chest to bar? I don't know. Does that mean I'll be able to do bar muscle-ups? I don't know. And your boy surely hasn't done a thruster in the time either. So I'm always down to try it out. I don't mind suffering a little bit, but I got to be smart, because I don't like being broken. So reach out to us if you have any questions. Again, if you're new to following my channel or the training methodology that I offer up, it's called TTRUtruefitness.com. You can get 7 days free of the program up here in the corner. So feel free to visit that QR code right there and get all access to all the training programs that we offer. But cheers to you guys. Good luck. And hey, week 2 of the Open. Let's keep going. Keep rising.